In March of 2019, my family moved into a two-story colonial in Derry, New Hampshire. The house had been sitting empty for 8 months after the previous owner died alone inside it. The realtor told us it was natural causes. What she didn't mention was that he hadn't always lived there alone. The day we moved in, I found a small handprint on the inside of my closet door. It was too small to belong to an adult. We'd relocated because my dad got transferred for work. My mom was excited about the extra space. Our old apartment had been cramped. The layout was simple: kitchen and living room downstairs, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs. My room was at the end of the hall, farthest from my parents. I was 17, so I didn't mind the privacy. The handprint bothered me, but I convinced myself it was from before the old man lived there. Maybe he'd had grandkids visit decades ago. I painted over it the first weekend. About 2 weeks in, I started hearing footsteps in the hallway at night. They were soft, like someone trying not to be heard. The first time I checked, nobody there. My parents were asleep. I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses do that. Then I started noticing my bedroom door would be open in the morning. I was religious about closing it before bed. I mentioned it to my mom, and she said maybe I was doing it in my sleep. I didn't sleepwalk, but I didn't push it. A month after moving in, I woke up at 3:47 a.m. to the sound of my closet door sliding open. My room was dark except for the blue glow of my charging phone. I stayed completely still, staring at the closet. The door was halfway open. I watched it for what felt like 10 minutes, waiting for it to move again. It didn't. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I got up, shut the closet, and dragged my desk chair in front of it. The next morning, the chair was back at my desk. I started sleeping with my light on. My parents thought I was being ridiculous, but they didn't stop me. I didn't tell them about the chair. Part of me wondered if I'd moved it myself and didn't remember. That scared me more than the alternative. The final incident happened in early May. I came home from school and went straight to my room. I dropped my backpack and saw something on my bed. It was a small, tarnished silver watch, the kind with a chain. I'd never seen it before. I picked it up. It was cold, heavier than it looked. The time was frozen at 3:47. I heard a creak behind me. I turned and saw my closet door sliding open, slow and deliberate. There was nothing inside, just my clothes. But I could feel something looking at me from the darkness in the back corner. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees in seconds. I backed out of my room and called my mom. She came home early. When we went back in together, the closet was closed. The watch was gone. We moved out 6 weeks later. My dad's company let him transfer back. We told people it didn't work out, that my mom missed her friends. I never told them what I saw in that last week before we left. How I'd wake up and see a shape standing at the foot of my bed, perfectly still, watching me in the dark. I still don't close closet doors all the way. I thought that was the worst of it. It wasn't. We bought the house in Vancouver, Washington in July of 2021. It was a foreclosure. The previous owners left so suddenly there were still dishes in the sink. In the basement, there was a 2-foot-tall door built into the wall. It was padlocked from the outside. I remember thinking that was strange. I didn't realize at the time the lock wasn't meant to keep something out. We moved in mid-August. My wife was on maternity leave, so she was home with our daughter while I worked. The first week was normal. Unpacking, setting up furniture, the usual chaos. Our daughter's room was next to ours, painted a soft yellow. She slept well there at first. Then she stopped sleeping through the night. She'd wake up screaming, pointing at the corner of her room. Nothing was there. My wife would calm her down, but it started happening every night around 2 a.m. We chalked it up to adjusting to the new environment. I was down in the basement one Saturday organizing tools when I noticed the padlock on the crawlspace door was open. It was still hooked through the latch, but it wasn't locked. I knew I hadn't touched it. I called up to my wife and asked if she'd been down there. She hadn't. I locked it again and put the key in my toolbox. 2 days later, it was open again. This time I didn't say anything. I locked it and checked it every day for a week. It stayed locked. I started to relax. Then my wife told me she'd been hearing something in the walls at night. Scratching, she said. I checked for rodents, found nothing. I set traps anyway. They were never triggered. One Thursday night I woke up at 1:53 a.m. because my daughter was crying. Not screaming, just a soft, sad crying. I got up to check on her, but when I opened her door, she was asleep. The crying was coming from inside our bedroom. I walked back in. My wife was asleep too. The sound was coming from the baby monitor. I picked it up. The camera was pointed at our daughter's crib, but she wasn't in frame. The crying continued through the speaker, steady and low. I looked at the screen. In the corner of the room where our daughter always pointed, there was a shadow. It was too dark to be a shadow from her nightlight. It was dense, solid. I dropped the monitor and ran to her room. She was asleep in her crib. The corner was empty. I checked every inch of that room. Nothing. The next morning I went to the basement. The padlock was open again, and the crawlspace door was cracked. I grabbed a flashlight and opened it wider. The smell hit me first. Damp earth and something stale. I crawled inside. The space was maybe 4 feet high and stretched back about 15 feet. At the far end, there was a pile of children's clothes, small sizes, toddler sizes. Underneath them was a baby monitor, the same brand as ours. I backed out and sealed the crawl space with screws. We moved into an apartment 2 weeks later. We're still there. We told people the house had foundation issues. My daughter sleeps through the night now, but sometimes I'll wake up and check the baby monitor, just to make sure her room is empty. Last month, the house sold again. I looked up the new owners on Facebook. They have a 2-year-old son. I thought about messaging them, but what would I even say? That their son's room might not be his alone? I deleted the draft and haven't checked since. Our son was 3 when he started talking to someone in his room at night. At first, we thought it was normal. An imaginary friend. Something toddlers grow out of. Then one morning he climbed into our bed, pointed toward the hallway and said, "He doesn't like that you closed it." Closed what? The little door under the house. We hadn't told him about the crawl space, and we hadn't told him we found something inside it. That was the first moment I realized. Whatever had been down there wasn't gone. We found the crawl space by accident. It was on the side of the house near the back corner. A small wooden panel painted the same color as the siding. Easy to miss. We had lived there just over a month when we heard the first sound from underneath the floor. It wasn't loud, just a dull shift, like weight adjusting. My husband said it was the pipes. Old houses make noises. I wanted to believe that. 3 nights later it happened again. This time around 2 a.m. I was already awake. Ever since the baby monitor started turning on by itself, I hadn't been sleeping well. I heard it clearly. A slow dragging noise. Directly beneath the hallway. Not metallic, not hollow. Something softer. Like fabric brushing against wood. I nudged my husband. He listened. Silence. "House settling," he whispered. But he didn't sound convinced. The next morning, while Eli watched cartoons, I walked around the outside of the house. That's when I noticed the panel. It was slightly crooked. Just enough to look wrong. I crouched down and pulled it open. The smell hit me first. Damp air. Stale. The kind of smell that lingers where air doesn't circulate. It led into a crawl space. Dirt floor. Low beams. Just enough room for someone to crawl. I didn't go inside. I closed it. That night the noise came back, but closer, not under the hallway, under Eli's room. I froze in bed. The baby monitor was on beside me. Green night vision glow. Eli was asleep. Still. Then the monitor crackled. A brief burst of static. I turned the volume up. The static faded. Then came a soft thud. From beneath the floor. Eli shifted in his bed. still asleep. The next morning, I told my husband we were checking it. He grabbed a flashlight, opened the panel, crouched down. I stood behind him. He shined the light inside. At first, nothing. Then he moved the beam slightly left, and we both saw it. A flattened cardboard box, half covered in dust, wedged against a beam. He crawled forward just enough to reach it, pulled it out. It was empty, but I recognized the logo immediately. It was the same brand as our baby monitor, the exact model. We hadn't put that there. We hadn't opened the crawl space before. My husband said maybe it belonged to the previous owners. That made sense. Until he shined the flashlight deeper. There was more. A crumpled fast food wrapper, an empty plastic water bottle, and a thin folded blanket tucked neatly along the dirt wall. Not scattered, placed, like someone had been lying there, watching through the floorboards. My husband backed out slowly. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. The water bottle wasn't dusty. Neither was the wrapper. That afternoon we called the police. They came. Searched thoroughly. Said there were no footprints, no disturbed soil. No signs anyone was currently there. One officer suggested a homeless person might have used it at some point, but he couldn't say when. They left. We sealed the panel with a heavy storage bin, just in case. That night around 1:50 a.m., I woke up again. No sound at first, just that alert feeling. Then the baby monitor flickered, just once. The camera angle shifted slightly downward, not dramatically, just enough to change the framing, like someone had touched it. I stared at the screen. Eli was still asleep. Then came the sound. A faint creak, not from below, from inside the hallway. A slow, careful step. I held my breath. Nothing followed. In the morning, the camera was angled lower, pointing more toward the floor than the bed. I asked my husband if he adjusted it. He hadn't. That afternoon, we checked the crawl space again. The heavy bin had been moved. Not far, just enough. The panel was slightly open. My husband unscrewed the panel this time. We had added 4 screws after the police visit. All 4 were still in place, but the wood around them had cracked, like pressure had been applied from the inside. He shined the flashlight. The blanket was gone. The wrapper was gone. The water bottle was gone. Only the monitor box remained, but it had been moved closer to the entrance. We didn't call the police again. We didn't see the point. We stayed at a hotel that night, and the night after. We started packing. 3 days later, while folding laundry in Eli's room, I heard him talking softly. He hadn't done that in over a week. "Okay," he said quietly. Pause. "I won't tell." I walked into the room. "Who are you talking to?" He didn't look at me. "He doesn't need the bottom part anymore," Eli said. "The bottom part of what?" I asked. He pointed down, at the floor, directly beneath his bed. That night, around 2:03 a.m., I woke up again. The baby monitor was off, powered down. I hadn't turned it off. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. Eli was asleep. The room looked normal. The closet door was shut. The camera angle steady. Then slowly. Eli shifted, not waking, just adjusting. He moved toward the edge of his bed, scooted slightly to the side, creating space beside him. Then he smiled. Not at the ceiling, not at the wall, at the empty space next to him, like someone had just climbed up,